Welcome to Significance Breeds Success. My name is Daniel Puder. I'm your host. Today, I have Chris Bello. He's a Houston real estate entrepreneur expert. On top of that, he has a top podcast on business. Check him out, chrisbello.com. Chris, thank you for coming, bro. We're going to hang out
so much
in like 2 months when I'm in Houston. I'm excited about this.
Yes, likewise. And definitely hit me up. I mean, I know a lot of people say we're going to hang out and it doesn't happen. So let's make sure it does.
Hey, I already programmed a text message. It's going to you like 2 weeks before. We're going to schedule the time. We're going to hang out.
Awesome. Can't wait.
I want to understand real estate because there's so many options out there, how to fund it, what to do, put it in a trust, buy it through a corporation, buy it personally. And it's such a big business, but right now the market's hurt. It's 2020 into 2020. Like, we got COVID going on. It's challenged. A lot of people aren't paying rent from what I saw a few of the months. Commercial properties are going bankrupt. What's going on here? It's a good time to buy, right?
So it is a good time to, I guess it depends on, your financial stability, right? Because I mean, I've had deals fall through where they did a re-verification of employment and someone got furloughed or they lost a job. And of course the financing falls through. But I've kind of positioned myself just from starting off on the investment side where I've got investors that have cash and they're ready to buy properties. They're looking for deals. The way the interest rates have been right now, they're really low, of course. So it's kind of driving prices up. So it's harder to find good deals right now because people are paying, retail rates. They're paying asking price in many areas of Houston where I am. That's not the case in all the parts of the country, of course. A lot of people are leaving expensive places like California and New York for Texas or other places. So I've still been seeing a lot of people buying houses. I mean, I had 4 deals close last month. I've got more closing in the next month or two as well. And people are paying like $5,000, $10,000 over asking price. I've got a client closing on a $520,000 house here in Houston this month, actually, in a couple of weeks. So it depends on your financial situation. If you're doing great or if you have a lot of savings, there's a lot of great opportunities that should be coming up here in 2021 to buy some properties with some equity in them.
So do you see a lot of people? I see a lot of people, Elon Musk, a ton of people moving out of California into Texas. And I see people moving to Florida. My brother's a psychiatrist. Yeah. He just sold his house in California, moving to Florida. I mean, what you can get from California to Florida or California to Texas is a lot, right?
Yeah, it is. I have some family in California. They always mention that too. I mean, they're like, man, it's so expensive. And they see my Instagram stories and they're like, you can get that house for $400,000. It looks like it would cost $10 million in California, right?
Well, and in California, you have I think it's around 13% state tax, income state tax, which is a ton compared to 0 in Texas or California, or in Florida. So it's interesting on not just the prices are lower, but the actual, if you have the same job per se, or you own the company, right, it's a lot better for people long-term that make over, 75, 100, 200, 300,000 a year.
Absolutely.
So why did you get into real estate? Like, what motivates you to add value to people's lives and build a family, build a home, build a place that they can actually settle down and lay their head every night?
So that's a good question. And I guess I like to start it with the quick story of how I even got into it, which is, of course, your question. But I have a degree in supply chain management. I went to Texas A&M University. I went the whole college route, got a job in supply chain, worked in oil and gas, got to work in Dubai. Of course, oil and gas is very cyclical as well. So I always saw layoffs and hard to stay motivated when staff's getting, headcount's getting cut every 2 weeks and you're seeing like a line going out the door. So I was like, well, should I work that hard? Because what if I just get let go in a month? What's the point? And I just didn't really like the cubicle life. And so I wanted to do something entrepreneurial. And I actually invented a product with a friend, filed a patent and everything. And I was just listening to one of your podcasts before we jumped on the show. And I heard of someone else who had a patent that he didn't pursue or really create. And so that's kind of the case with me. Poured all my money into this thing, didn't work out. And I'm like, well, I want to be an entrepreneur. I don't want a boss. What should I do? And real estate was one of those things where I'd always heard about it. I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. They talk about investing in assets. And so I started listening to another podcast called Bigger Pockets. Many people who listen to Bigger Pockets or are in real estate know that they cover everything from single family to apartment complexes to wholesaling, different strategies. And it's just following the breadcrumbs. I'm always just, when your reticular activating system, the RAS, is focused on something, you're tuned into it more. So I started listening to Bigger Pockets. I heard this guy on there being interviewed, and he was based out of Houston. Their office was 10 minutes from my house. And so he went to my university. I played that card. Hey, man, I went there too. I want to get into real estate. Like, can I help you? Can I do marketing for free? I needed a mentor. And I joined them, got my start in wholesaling investment properties for about a year, got my license last year. And then the rest is history, as they say. Now I'm helping families buy and sell their dream homes, as well as investors buy distressed properties to renovate, to flip. And so I've made this my quote unquote day job, because I knew that if I understand it and I become the expert in it, then I can raise capital and do my own deals and go in on joint ventures and that kind of thing. So the short answer is I knew real estate was a way to build wealth, and I wanted to get into it. So hope that all made sense.
Well, it's a dream. Like, most people don't go after their dream. They're not willing to lose everything to gain everything.
That's true. I mean, there were several months I left a good job where I had plenty of money coming in, great benefits. Why would I ever want to leave, right? I mean, I had the comfortable handcuffs of a great position, and I left it and I spent money, and I went to, oh crap, I have credit card debt now. Like, this is how it's supposed to feel, right? So it took a while for me to start to figure things out. But you're right, though. When you follow your dreams, a lot of people are scared to do that. It's unfortunate.
Yeah. My father and mother always asked me, like, when I was a pro fighter and wrestler, they're like, what are you doing? Like, how long are you going to do this for?
Right.
But no, what's interesting is your career can go for a very long time. This is what I tell my kids in our school. I own some schools down here, and these kids are like, I want to be a rapper or an NFL player. And I'm like, awesome. You can rap forever. That's an amazing career. You want to sing or perform a musical instrument? Amazing. Now, a football player, a basketball player, you're limited. You're limited on time. You're limited with your body. You're limited with politics. You can only work for X amount of people versus if you're your own artist, or you have, a real estate, company, or your investment company, or like what Grant Cardone's done with, buying properties and, being, raising a couple $1 billion. It's amazing to be able to see, what you can take long-term. So nobody ever showed me, hey, how do you utilize your athletic skills and ability and friendships and relationships and mindset,
right,
to be able to get your second career. So it was a little challenging. And I'm looking at the list of books. So I've only read one of your books cover to cover. The other ones, I've listened to a couple of them.
Okay.
Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I love it. If you guys go to chrisbello.com, amazing list of books here. I've listened to some. I have a couple that I haven't read. The One Thing, that's a good one. I listened to that on podcasts or non-podcasts on Amazon. The 10X Rule. These are really good. How often do you read, and what percent of the time do you learn? Do you pour into yourself?
That's a great question. And I actually brought a book with me here to WeWork, where I'm working out of. And I've got this huge book right now. I'm reading Principles by Ray Dalio. And I'm always reading. If you've read The Miracle Morning, and honestly, I haven't updated that book list in a while, so I need to, but I've read way more books, and a lot of them that show as next reads, I've already read through. And if I was recording this for my home office, you'd see the books behind me. I don't have a bookshelf like Ty Lopez's ad yet, but I'm working towards getting there, where it's just books all behind me. But I read this book called The Miracle Morning by Hal Elrod, and that really changed the trajectory of my life in a way, because prior to that, I didn't really have a morning routine. I just woke up and I kind of rolled out of bed and did whatever I needed to do. I went to work for a while, and then when I quit the job, I was like, well, do I read? Do I watch a YouTube video? I don't know what to do, right? So that morning routine helped me get very focused. And part of that routine every morning is that I read 20 minutes a day, at least 20 minutes. And it doesn't sound like a lot. A lot of people say they don't have time to read, but you'd be surprised. I think reading 20 to 30 minutes a day last year, I read 32 books or something like that. And It's about an estimate. I'm so granular with what I track. I literally track how many pages I read a day, and I'm using about 250 pages to count as one book. So I know how many pages I've read this year if I pull up my goal tracking sheet, and I could tell you what I'm projected to hit at the current rate. So I'm kind of a nerd about that, but reading has been a huge part of my life. Podcasts, Audible books, like you said, that's a great way to read a book faster. But I find that I retain it a little better if I'm actually sitting there reading, highlighting, taking notes versus driving where I'm like, oh man, that person almost killed me. Like, oh, I forgot. Let me rewind 1 minute because I wasn't focused on the book for the last 30 seconds, right? As the 18 wheelers are like driving around you and stuff like that. So learning is a huge part of my daily activities. And I can really attribute my growth to ideas that other people have had. I don't come up with all these ideas, right? I borrow them from others. You listen to a podcast, you apply things. You listen to an audiobook, you apply them.
Yeah, I love it. What's really interesting about people like you, and there's not that many out there, is it's a very small, like people read stuff, but then they don't make a page. I don't even have a page on my personal website on the books I've read, right? Like that gives me a really good idea on what extra value I can add to people's lives because they're good content to learn and grow. Using all of that learning, growing, what was the purpose around the podcast?
So the podcast was actually a way for me to document. And I find with other podcasters, they have a similar idea where it becomes like a sort of therapy in a way. And I never had done therapy until recently, just like openly. I didn't feel like I needed a therapist. I got the idea from another podcast where people that I like and respect, they said, hey, it's kind of like taboo to talk about needing a therapist. I got therapists because it helps me understand how I think. So anyway, I have a therapist. I'm meeting with her tomorrow, but podcasting has been a form of like therapy in a way where if I do a solo episode, it's kind of like me just documenting how I feel, how a transaction went, how to handle difficult clients when I've had situations where I didn't want to pick up the phone when they were calling me and they were upset. But also I learned so much when I talked to other people. And I was listening to podcasts all the time, right? When I got into this entrepreneurial spirit, I was listening to hours and hours of podcasts. And I would find that a lot of the podcasts I listened to, I mean, yeah, they were great, but I was like, I want another kind of podcast that speaks to me more. And the way that I found to do that was to just make one that I enjoyed to make. I guess I'm biased, right? Of course, I'll listen to my own show because I'm making it, but I felt like I had a voice that I needed to find. And that's where the podcasting thing really developed. And if you listen to episode 1 versus now, my speaking has improved like 100 times. I've become more vocal. I've become a better presenter, I guess, in a way. And so I started the podcast before I even got into real estate. I talked about the product that I try to invent, how it didn't work. It's a way of sharing my story. And so anyone who listens to my podcast or listens to yours, it's a way for them to see how you think and what you think about and how you handle certain situations, right? So it's just a really good way of documenting the journey.
I love the documented journey. You have a couple hundred episodes now. Do you find that you've built I've built some really good relationships with spending an hour with Dr. Oz or you, or, people that are like-minded. They are in the same world. They, later on make intros or open doors, or it's amazing to be able to see, what that can bring. What kind of relationships have you built because of it?
That is such a good point. And I feel weird telling people that I've made friends that I've never met in person. I've got really good friends where we talk once a week, every other week. In fact, I actually hired a friend who I first interviewed him. I met him on a Facebook group, probably the ClickFunnels Facebook group or something like that. Met a couple of guys that quit their job around the same time as me, and we've been following each other's journey. I've never met them, and I never met them in person, but 3 years ago, I met them online. And one of the guys, I've interviewed him on my show 2 times. We've had conversations. We've been vulnerable about what's working, what's not working. And he's actually working with Dean Graziosi and Tony Robbins at mastermind.com. And so an example of how meeting someone and interviewing them on my podcast has changed my life is that I was looking to hire a coach to help me build this course and bring it to life. And I reached out to this guy because I feel like I know him. I like him. I can trust him. He's working with Tony Robbins and Dean Graziosi. He's coaching people.